What's up, and welcome to the video. Today, we're talking about the brand new 15-inch MacBook Air. And I want to say a little over a year ago, we reviewed the 13-inch M2 MacBook Air, and that was a great computer. There wasn't too much to improve. But Apple went ahead and dropped a 15-inch version with the same M2 chip inside, and this is a fantastic laptop. Not just because of the fact that it has a bigger screen, more so because of the options it gives to the consumers. So let's get into the details. The MacBook Air has always been the quintessential MacBook, right? I still remember when the first generation came out, they showed the really cool product video where they opened it up and then they reached into this super thin envelope and they pulled out a super thin MacBook. I wanted one so bad after I watched that video. But yeah, the MacBook Air has always kind of been the thin, the light, the budget-friendly option. But here's the thing. For quite some time now, especially when you look at phones and also now laptops, the demand for larger screen sizes has increased, right? And devices that come with smaller screen sizes are becoming less and less popular. With Apple's product line, if you wanted to buy a MacBook that came with a larger screen, that for the longest time would typically mean that you would have to bump up to a Pro model, which oftentimes was probably overkill for what you were trying to accomplish with an everyday computer, and it also meant you had to spend a lot more money. So that's why this MacBook is really important, because now it kind of comes in, slots itself as a big screen option, and it kind of offsets the product line where you can get yourself a really high quality everyday computer with that same big screen size. Now internally, it's still running the same M2 chip, so it's the same exact SoC as last year's 13-inch MacBook Air, but there are a couple of differences that I want to highlight in this video. Now your biggest differences are going to be your screen size, obviously, but with the bigger screen size and bigger chassis comes a bigger battery. So let's talk about that for a little bit. As far as the display goes, it is slightly over 15 inches diagonally, and as far as quality goes, I really like it. I really liked the display quality on last year's MacBook Air. This is no different. It's still 60 Hertz. You're still going to get the same exact pixel density, and it's still the same exact max brightness. So it's very familiar, and it's also very good quality. And as far as, the notch up top goes, it does make its return, but you're going to get really used to it. I don't even notice it anymore. I daily a 16-inch MacBook Pro. So as far as the notch goes, you're going to get used to it. It's a fantastic display. Now, as far as battery goes, you do have a larger battery inside this MacBook, obviously with the bigger chassis, but it's one of those situations where bigger battery, bigger display, they kind of offset each other, if that makes sense. I found the battery life on this to be essentially identical to last year's MacBook Air, which is exactly what Apple claims as well. So if you're going to use this for moderate to heavy usage, no problem getting through the day. Light usage, multiple days. Now, as far as colors, I would recommend getting something slightly livelier than space gray, because you are going to get a matching lightning braided cable inside the box. So go for something like Midnight or Starlight if you're digging those colors, because the charging cables with those computers are going to be sick. Now, as far as a couple of other added hardware features that are worth mentioning, bigger trackpad. You love to see a bigger trackpad, and there is some additional speaker hardware on the inside too. And I think speaker quality on these MacBook Airs are really solid. They're definitely not on par with the MacBook Pros, obviously, but those computers have fantastic speakers. These are really good. And one other interesting thing worth noting, even though there's room on the sides of the keyboard for speaker grills, Apple decided to basically opt for what they did last year. The sound is actually going to come out of your hinge right underneath your display. As far as peripherals go, a couple of Thunderbolt ports and a MagSafe charging port on one side, and then on the other side you have a headphone jack, and then one other thing I wanted to mention, Touch ID returns as well. You love to see it. So that's it. That's the 15-inch MacBook Air, and I feel like this is going to be a really popular MacBook because it's going to give so many consumers out there the option to get themselves into a MacBook that has, again, the larger screen, and it's going to be great because you don't have to shell out extra to get yourself into something like a 16-inch MacBook Pro, which is going to come with hardware you might not even use, and it's going to be significantly more expensive. I think Apple did a really good job with this. Now let's talk about pricing and specs. The model that I have on the table with me right now has 8 gigs of unified memory and 256 gigs of internal storage, and it's $1,299. Now, one thing I did want to mention, I feel like in 2023, it might be a little difficult for you to get away with 8 gigs of RAM and 256 gigs of storage. So if you're going to buy one, I would recommend speccing it out for the future. When I built the MacBook Air, I opted for 24 gigs of unified memory and 512 gigs of internal storage. And that brought it up to like $1,900. At that point, you're $100 shy of the 14-inch MacBook Pro, which is going to come with its own suite of benefits, right? Better processor, better display quality, better speakers, like a whole bunch of different things. So if you start to spec this out pretty highly, you are going to have to weigh out your options there. But again, I think this is super solid. Whether you're a student who wants to use this for school, whether you're someone who wants to use it day to day at home, or I would even say in like a general home office setting, this is going to be a fantastic computer. If you buy it, make sure you spec it for the future though, because you do want it to last as long as possible. As always, if you enjoyed this review, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video. Peace. Those speakers are absolutely phenomenal, but these are solid. They get the job done. And then of course, you also still have Touch ID towards the top right corner of your cable or your keyboard as well. So.